Yeah, you helped us with a documentary we made during lockdowns called Sick Year, where we followed the journey of various moms who went through that process that you're describing, because first they knew that lockdowns were bad for their children, but once they were locked down, they had access to the curriculum that was actually being taught, and even the methods, like the sort of I compare it to sort of prison culture where kids are not taught, they're just regimented and marched from class to class, and
it's a Prussian model from modern day Germany.
Yeah.
That Horace Mann imported. He's the first Secretary of Education in Massachusetts, the father of public education. I talk about school choice hypocrisy all the time, where you have Joe Biden against school choice, but then he sent his own kids to private school. You see this over and over again. Terry McAuliffe was against school choice.
You document this every day on
everywhere.
X.
Gavin Newsom. You'd start to see it, and it is literally everywhere. Elizabeth Warren, when she was running for the Democrat Party in the primary in 2019. She disclosed on a survey that she went to public schools, but then didn't answer the second part of the survey asking about where she sent her kids, which was a red flag. She would have bragged about it if it was a public school. I had exposed her back in 2019 for lying on camera to a voter, saying that she sent her kids to public schools when actually she sent her son Alex Warren to a private school. But just total hypocrisy. Horace Mann, it started from the very beginning, the father of public education. He thought we needed this mass system of compulsory education, of government schools for the masses, because I guess they couldn't figure out how to teach their own kids. But what did he do? He homeschooled his own kids. So school choice for me, but not for it's this elitist mentality that they know better than you because they have more money than you, because they have the PhD or education doctorate after their name, that they're somehow better parents than you. No, that's completely wrong. The experts don't really know what they're doing, the so-called experts. You look at the colleges of education. They have some of the easiest programs. They have the lowest standardized test scores going into these colleges of education, and they're the ones teaching our kids. Parents, if you take one thing away from this podcast today, it's that you should have more confidence in yourself. You know better than the people in the public school system, and more importantly, you care about your kids more than anybody in the public school system. And that's also what a lot of families saw during COVID. When they got a taste of homeschooling, I mean, the system was telling parents over and over again, you're not smart enough, you can't handle it. So they had no confidence. But when they were forced to try to start to homeschool, some parents didn't work out, but a lot of people who weren't even going to ever try that to begin with, they switched to homeschooling. Now we've seen at least a doubling of homeschoolers since pre-pandemic levels. So it's another silver lining thanks to
somebody has to go first, and then you realize that all of the mysticism and mythology about teaching, you realize, and you mentioned it, incentives. I think, I'm picking on Randy Weingarten, but I think it's the entire education industrial complex that is the political albatross around. I
think that's why we all just rolled over and took it during COVID. I mean, we've had mass factory model schooling at a large scale in the United States for a very long time. In every state, we have compulsory education laws. In just about every state, we have 90% of kids or so going to government-run institutions. Each year, it's about 50 million kids nationwide for 13 years of their lives, for 7 hours a day, getting brainwashed and beaten into submission, getting creativity forced out of their systems, just learning to comply and listen to authority figures who have no real authority. It's just the kids are stuck there with other adults who aren't their parents, and they have to listen to them, and they think they're going to get in big trouble if they don't. And so when they told us, we're going to have a lockdown, and we're not going to open back up, and you got to get this shot that hasn't been tested, and even though it might have these side effects, you got to do it if you still want to work. We're going to close the restaurants, but we're going to have the grocery stores open, and if you want to go to the restaurants, you have to have a vaccine passport. And, we're going to open the bars at one point, but then we're going to keep the schools closed for the lowest risk people in society, the kids. It was all about political dynamics. It was all a political decision, not a health decision. It was all about control, but then people just rolled over and took it. We all know it was stupid. We had data at the time showing that the schools were the safest things in society, the first things that should have opened, but they were the last because they were controlled by the unions and the politicians who just wanted to extort more resources from the taxpayer. It had nothing to do with health. It had nothing to do with safety. It had zero to do with the kids. The private schools were open. Why? Because they knew their customers could walk and take their money somewhere else. So I hope we learned something about all this disaster that unfolded starting 5 years ago.
It is the crisis that Friedman talks about. It's the teachable moment, and parents were given an opportunity to discover what was really going on. And that is not just happening in Texas now. I know Tennessee just did a big thing. Give us a couple other. Let's do a victory lap about some of the other states.
We could take the rest of the podcast doing the victory lap. We're winning so much, I'm almost getting tired of winning. No, I'm just kidding. We got to get Virginia and blue states on board too. But I'll tell you, this is a seismic shift in the amount of states and just the velocity of how quickly we're moving on the issue of school choice. In the past 4 years, we've had more advancement on school choice than in the preceding 4 decades. It has been so much momentum. The wind is at our backs. We're not slowing down. But this year, I mean, we had a lot of rural states going all in on school choice. We've had total since 2021, 16 states go all in on school choice. This year we had Wyoming, Tennessee, my home state of Texas, and we had a couple other rural states as well. North Dakota got close, but their rhino governor, who said in his State of the State address that he was going to support school choice and specifically education savings accounts, he vetoed his own promise, basically. I guess the teachers unions got to him. He also vetoed a bill to protect kids from sexually explicit books in public school libraries, which I don't know why you would do that as a Republican at this point. But I think in some states, they get so far controlled by one party that there starts to become factions within that party. Whereas in more purplish states, like if Virginia were to like slowly swing right by a couple of seats, I bet you they'd quickly pass universal school choice because they know the Republicans all got to band together to get things done. Whereas you get a place like North Dakota, 90% of the chamber's Republicans. So then you get kind of these, you know, if you're going to be the only one voting against school choice, that's going to be a problem for you in a state. But if you can find 10 others to band together, it becomes easier for you to get off the platform issues.
I'm assuming this is true in North Carolina, but my experience in state capitals, when it's one party dominated, it's a closed echo chamber system, and they think that the lobbyists that track through their office every day represents their constituents. And you actually need some competition to break out.
Yeah, and North Carolina is one of the the closest to a purplish state that went all in on school choice a couple of years ago. They had a Democrat governor. But in North Carolina, you don't need a 2/3 majority to override a veto. You just need a 3/5, 60% majority. And guess what happened? A couple years ago, they had a Democrat in the House named Tricia Cotham. And while she was a representative, she switched parties to the GOP on the issue of school choice. She became the primary bill sponsor for their universal school choice bill, and that gave them just enough votes. She was the 3/5, the last vote they needed to get that majority to override a veto from Roy Cooper, who's another hypocrite, sent his daughter to a private school. I don't blame him for doing that. More power to you. But he's such a freaking hypocrite that he went on his official governor website and all read at the top an emergency declaration. No, I'm not talking about the hurricane from recently. He was talking about an issued emergency declaration for school choice. Talk about an abuse of emergency powers. Talk about fear-mongering. It may have been an emergency to his special interest to control him. It wasn't a real emergency to families. The real emergency is kids being stuck in failing government schools that have 0% proficiency rates. They're trapped there. They have to move houses to get to a better public school. We shouldn't call them public schools. They're government schools because they're not public in the economic sense of the word. They are rivalrous. They are excludable. They do exclude kids. Take, for example, in San Antonio, Texas, where I live. I'm next to a district called Alamo Heights Independent School District. They're one of the better public school districts. They're probably woke still. They lobbied against the school choice bill. I found out last year that you could theoretically transfer into that school, so they could say they have some form of school choice, but they can kick you out based on your academic records. They can kick you out based on disciplinary records. They reassess you every year, and guess what? You have to pay over $10,000 in tuition at a public school on top of what you're paying for the school you're not going to use through the property tax system. You have to pay twice to go to this so-called public schools. These are government-run institutions. They are exclusive, and they discriminate on the basis of zip code.
Thank you for watching Kibbe on Liberty. You can watch new episodes every Wednesday anywhere that you consume podcasts, on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, whatever. Watch, click, like, check it out.